All right, so we have two assignments that were submitted, and I'm so happy that you guys took the time to do this. Because pushing your skills again and again and again are the best way for you to improve. So, okay, first, looking at this, just to critique it on the positive and negative space, when I look at this, I see the positive space as a lifeguard tower. Even this sign here, the person, the birds, and the umbrella. Those are the subjects. Those are what this image seems to be more about. And then everything else kind of falls into negative space. And we can go into this like back and forth as to what is positive space and what is negative space. And that is fun to do. And I think we can for sure do that with Kim's image as well. Where if you're looking at this image without these objects here, then the ocean, then the skyline, that would be the positive space. And the negative space would end up being the sky, where as it gets darker, and the beach where we don't have detail. So it's really about what the subject is and how that is being pulled out from the background. On a technical side for this image, a couple of things I noticed. One is that it looks like your image sensor might be dirty. We have a spot here and here. So wipe off your lens, take a picture of the sky and see if it's still there, because that could be an issue. Okay, and then we have this at a high ISO, and we can see that digital noise. So especially if you zoom in a little bit, you can see this digital noise over here. And we'd like to avoid that. So shooting this with a lower ISO and less depth of field. So remember, when we shoot with a wider angle lens, which you've done here, you can have a wider aperture, and it won't affect the image as much as it would if you had a longer lens or your subject was close to the lens. Here, you could probably shoot this at f5.6 and you get about the same amount of depth of field. So because you're focusing so far into the scene and you have a wider lens, you could bring down your ISO by opening up your aperture some. Beautiful image. The simplicity of it is really nice. And those birds, I think, really make the image. I think it would be kind of boring if we didn't have those birds flying by. And then we have Kim's image here. So again, we can go back and forth on the positive and negative space. So I see the positive space is the spoon that's coming in. And then around the spoon is all this milk, and that's the negative space. But we could also, if we kind of pretend that this spoon isn't here, then this reflection becomes the positive space instead of being part of that overall negative space. You could even move to say that the spoon and the reflection of the spoon are the light shining through, and what that's putting down, the shadow, but it's colored, of the spoon. This could all be our positive space. So you can kind of go back and forth with this as well. Here you're at f32 with a longer lens. So she's shooting this at 200 millimeters at f32. So here you would want that smaller aperture, because this is already starting to fall out of focus because of that longer lens. So it's fun to see these next to each other and see how aperture comes into play. And then this is our one image for size and scale. And this is exactly what we want you to do, is not to photograph like a figurine, which students often do for this assignment, but rather to move yourself within space as a photographer and compare things in a different way. So here you have your son, it looks like, as he's in front of the brick wall, and the hand is coming down towards him, and it feels like it's much larger than it is because he's back in space. Having this shot at f22, I think, also makes sense because you're putting them closer to the same focal plane. So it becomes more believable. You're flattening out the scene more. You could take all different approaches to this. You could be shooting from up in the tree and have these tree branches look large next to him, or shooting down on the ground and having these plants, if you were further away from him, look like they're huge compared to him. So you can really play around with this. And this is a great example of what we're looking for this assignment. So Nice job. Something I noticed in both this image and this image, I could be wrong on this image, is that that horizon line isn't totally straight. So here we'd want to straighten it out. Let's see, not much, I guess, less than I would think, but straighten it out to there. And now you can see how this looks flatter and this looks angled. And again, the same thing here. We're just at a little bit of an angle, and you have 100 things that you're paying attention to in this image. So that's understandable, but we would want this to be about there. So it's something I notice a lot because I tend to do it in my photographs and have to be really aware of it. And I actually carry a level around with me because the camera I have, I can't look through an eyepiece. So really getting a horizon line straight is a big deal. So just little things you guys can do on both of those images. And yeah, I think getting closer works better, but this is kind of interesting when you're working with the shadow as well and how that's creating positive and negative space. This is smart spray paint can with the clouds. Nice job with this. You both did a really nice job with this. Thanks for taking the time to complete these.